The moment you stop running from your own potential is the moment power starts to walk with you. There are moments in life when an individual finds themselves breaking their own commitments, not out of defiance, but out of a quiet dissonance that forms between who they are and who they strive to become. This inner conflict rarely presents itself through loud rebellion. Instead, it manifests through hesitation, distraction, and delay. Let me tell you this: discipline is often misunderstood as a matter of strength. In truth, it is far more related to identity than effort. When one does not believe in their future self, progress feels unnatural. Throughout human history, individuals have assumed that lack of discipline is a failure of willpower. Yet deeper analysis suggests something else. When the internal self-image does not align with the envisioned potential, resistance naturally appears. Each unfulfilled promise subtly reinforces an internal narrative. That commitment is unsustainable. Have you noticed it too? When someone forces themselves forward without psychological alignment, their progress often collapses at the first sign of resistance. From a philosophical perspective, avoidance cannot be reduced to laziness. It is, in most cases, a protective mechanism. The psyche prioritizes stability over transformation, especially when change threatens established identity. Let's explore why so many people feel so different when attempting growth. Individuals often retreat not because the goal is beyond their capability, but because it introduces uncertainty into their familiar psychological framework. In many cases, internal conflict surges when transformation demands a departure from familiar patterns. Evolution requires detachment from obsolete versions of the self, yet emotional attachment to past identity is strong. But here's the central question: how can an individual commit to a future that their present identity has not accepted as possible? Until this question is addressed, discipline remains superficial. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle. Most assume procrastination is caused by distraction or lack of focus. In reality, it often arises from a deeper internal contradiction. An individual invests time into planning, yet feels immobilized at execution. Let me tell you this: the delay is not incompetence, it is fear of displacement. Transformation implies letting go of the version of themselves that has once felt safe. When the envisioned future conflicts with the known self, resistance surfaces as hesitation. This resistance is not conscious sabotage, but a function of psychological equilibrium. Internal systems are designed to maintain consistency between belief and behavior. So what do? Any attempt at self-improvement must begin not with external action, but with internal redefinition. Consider this: humans are creatures of cognitive coherence. They strive to maintain alignment between identity and action. When action stretches beyond identity, self-sabotage ensues. Have you noticed it too? Those who view themselves as disciplined rarely struggle to stay consistent. Their behavior is not forced, it is aligned. Let's explore why so many people feel so different once they cross the threshold between intention and execution. The moment they begin acting against their internal narrative, they experience psychological friction. Progress suddenly feels unnatural. But here's the central question: must discipline be cultivated solely through force, or does it instead emerge when identity aligns with purpose? In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Albert Camus. Many attempt to solve their problems through increased effort. They push harder, adopt stricter routines, and seek stronger motivation. Yet, these solutions fail when they do not reflect internal alignment. The individual may wake early and push through resistance, but without identity integration, discipline remains temporary. Let me tell you this: effort without alignment creates burnout. Philosophically, identity precedes transformation. One cannot act as a disciplined individual without first perceiving themselves as such. The mind naturally follows the stories it believes. Have you noticed it too? The most consistent individuals do not rely on willpower. They act in accordance with their perceived nature. Their discipline is an expression, not a struggle. So what do? The first step is not to increase pressure, but to evolve self-concept. The individual must view discipline not as a corrective measure, but as a reflection of their character. This requires honesty, introspection, and acceptance of potential. Let's explore why so many people feel so different once they redefine themselves. They begin to act with greater clarity because their actions no longer oppose their identity. Transformation is not an act, but a becoming. But here's the central question: can one truly change behavior without changing narrative? Until identity aligns with discipline, every effort will feel like resistance against one's own nature. The greatest discovery of any generation is that a human can alter his life by altering his attitude. William James. Within every human psyche lies what Carl Jung referred to as the shadow, the part that remains unseen, often rejected. It is within this shadow that discipline dissolves. The shadow holds insecurity, fear of inadequacy, and the quiet belief that failure is inevitable. Let me tell you this: avoiding discipline often serves as protection against confronting that shadow. Many attempt to control behavior while ignoring hidden beliefs. Have you noticed it too? People break their commitments after significant progress. Not because success is unwanted, but because success threatens the narrative they have unconsciously aligned with. The shadow prefers known discomfort over unfamiliar power. So what do? It is not enough to suppress self-sabotage. Instead, one must invite the shadow into awareness. Through acknowledgement, it loses its influence. Let's explore why so many people feel so different when they accept their imperfections. Self-acceptance allows for sustainable discipline. It removes the internal conflict between who they were and who they are becoming. When the shadow is integrated, growth becomes an act of honesty rather than defiance. But here's the central question: is discipline an act of force, or is it the natural result of internal unity? Once an individual aligns their identity, beliefs, and actions, effort transforms into expression. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. There comes a moment when transformation is no longer viewed as distant. It is recognized as present and unfolding. The individual does not wait for perfect conditions. They begin now. Let me tell you this: self-betrayal ends the moment internal acceptance begins. Consistency emerges not from strength, but from sincerity. Have you noticed it too? Those who walk with conviction do not speak of discipline. They embody it. Their actions are aligned with their identity. They no longer force themselves into change, they evolve into it. So what do? It begins with acknowledging the truth. Potential exists, and it waits for alignment. Let's explore why so many people feel so different when they decide to no longer postpone their becoming. It is because transformation begins the very second one stops betraying their potential. But here's the central question: if one no longer doubts who they can become, what would life look like lived fully in that certainty? For those witnessing this message, if reflection has sparked something within, consider staying connected. This channel is not built on motivation, but insight. If this resonated, offer support through a like, share, or subscription. It allows these reflections to reach others on the same journey. The exploration does not end here. It begins.